What's up, guys? Aishi here. So, I did promise I was going to do a Chanter guide. I wouldn't call it a guide, it's more of like a skill overview, I guess. You might as well call it a guide, whatever. But essentially, yeah, season 1 finally wound down. I finished up all my grinding and everything, and I finally have some free time to sort of kick back, relax, and do some content like this, right? So, it's been a fun, good season 1. We'll have to see where the game goes season 2. I'm still hanging out on the Taiwan servers until global, but we'll see how long I stick with it until then. But anyways, let's get into it, right? So again, this is Chanter. It's definitely, I want to say, if you play Final Fantasy 14, it feels like every class in this game kind of does their share of damage, right? I would say that while Chanter does seem a bit more supporty, and it is labeled specifically as like a healer class, utility class by the game, it can do that. But I think every game has like a role of doing damage. Inside PvP, it's more of like a lockdown class, a bit more of a duelist, right? That doesn't really have too many um, large scale tools. It's mostly like a buffer, and it's able to single out targets. It has some like a good mix of like melee damage, a good mix of range damage. You can poke, you can catch out people, you can follow up on things, etc. Um, and in PVE, it does deal. It's more of like a damage dealer, right? With like a couple of like major support skills. I'd say my damage is in the neighborhood of like clerics, templars. The damage is relatively competitive. There's a big difference between playing this class well and not, just in terms of rotation and everything. And you make a difference. Like inside one of the new dungeons that came out with like a 3K gear score entry. That those kind of dungeons, like you can make or break it depending on how well you play your class. Even a class that's more utility or support based, right? So, anyways, this is going to be more PV oriented. I'm going to be going through all the skills, and I'm going to be talking about it relative to general content, from just like what is some of the specializations that you want, stigmas that you want, what's good for bossing, what's good for farming, etc. And we'll just take it from the top and go through all the skills, right? Now, I'll probably find out how to go through the stats and everything later. Again, it's all gonna be one take. I might have to like renege on some things and everything, but it's fine. All right, we'll take it as we go. Okay. Left click. This is your auto attack, and I'll go through rotation after going through all the skills, or like general like priority of skills. So again, this is your auto attack. I would say that yeah, I'd say that your left click on at least right now, because this class plays more off of like uh, hits proccing skills to activate your bulk of your damage. I would say that your left click is pretty strong, right? And that's like the core of your kit. You always want to be hitting this thing. So we have a couple of specs here. MP, I'd say this class doesn't really use too much MP unless you're right clicking a lot or using your heavy attack. But I find it not too necessary in the class inside PvE. The important things are making sure you have your spinning strike on cooldown and the storm chain on your activation. Right, so I'd say these are the two major ones. The HP leech is quality of life, and number 3 is multi hit. Multi hit, I think it's about like 15% more damage roughly. It's not the yeah, it's about 15% more damage, and you have natural multi hit anyways, so you're going to be proccing multi hit, but it's not something that you really want to use a spec on, right? I'd go with in terms of priority, probably Storm Chain, then lowering the cooldown on Spinning Strike, and then Leech. So the Leech itself, it's pretty impactful, right? Like we see here, you see healing here. You see, let's say we're hitting one target, right? It's not too bad. Let me see if I can pull up the healing numbers here. Combat. Let's do only region. Yeah, so I'd say it probably heals like maybe about like 1,000, like 2,000 to 3,000 per rotation, right? It's 4 skills. The big thing is that when you spec into Storm Chain, the final hit is where a lot of the damage comes from. So there's 2 important ones, right? The opening strike is 2 hits, it doesn't matter too much. The second strike is, I think, like 4 hits, 4 hits. That's a high chance of proccing your one of your major skills, right? This is your multi-hit, Resonance Crush. The third one is decent damage, but the last one, that's 80k right there, right? That's I think it was Storm Chain. So yeah, you can fake swing 2, 3, and then hit with the main hit, which is Storm Chain, which is like not bad if you're like mobbing or you want to like fight bosses and you're like inside, you're in like a downtime phase. You can prep your final swing if you want. That's for the auto. The right click, I don't use it too much unless I spec into the minus accuracy. It's more like a debuff skill or the plus 10% chance on stun. Inside PvE, I don't use it too much. You could use it for mobbing if you have 16 on it, because you could proc stuns, which proc your other skills. So that's not too bad, but I'm not going to focus on it too much. The rushing smash is your main gap closer. What I like to do with this one, you can run charge if you want. They recently buffed it to increase stagger damage on charge. Like the charge is fine. It's pretty hard too. It's about like 67k on front crit. Yeah, it's a good amount. If it doubles, it's pretty fat damage too. But I prefer going with because in general, you're not going to be getting hit by mobs inside PvE. I prefer to use this to activate another skill, which, only activates when you block something. You generally don't want to get hit, right? So I use that, and I use minus cooldown because the DPS is just better on minus cooldown. Going from 15 to 10 seconds on what's both a gap closer and an enabler for your Heatwave blow, it's pretty good. So you press this, and then you get Heatwave blow after, which is a pretty strong hitting skill. So that's my spec on rushing smash. The last one, I'd probably get charge. This lands as a multi-hit. Again, it's like 15% chance, but what's my multi-hit chance right now? Move my mic a little bit. My multi-hit chance, main stat, it's somewhere in here. Special. Here, 16% chance. So yeah, I mean, it's a 16% chance of doing 15% more damage. I don't think going to 100% is too necessary on that. The fact that you can have a 50% lower cooldown and gap closer, plus the ability to proc one of your stronger nukes on the skill that you normally wouldn't inside PvE is good enough for your first two specs. All right. Impact Crush. This is probably your main skill. Inside PvE, it's one of your main like DPS tools for range, right? It's one of your only range skills that you can cast unconditionally. It's also a stun if you spec into it. So I tend to like having mobile on it because a lot of bosses, at least right now, tend to have mechanics where you need to jump over things, and you can't cast in the air unless you have mobile, right? And it also stops you a little bit to keep you from moving back to the back end of the boss. And I have the chain skill on it, which gives you a second swing on it. You get guaranteed multi-hit if you stun the first target with it. So in general, I would say my priority is, this is just on bossing, right? 1 is mobile, 2 is the chain. Right, so it's 1, 2. And if you want to mob or you're like clearing for Transcendence, I would probably take off mobile and then put on AoE damage instead. But again, it's a little clunky, right? Because you kind of stop. You could like roll cancel, I guess. Alright. The stun duration's okay for mobbing too if you're like in a very clear heavy roll. Probably for like lower gear score or something. You could probably have a +1 stun duration on it, that's fine. And the stun chance is just for PvP. Okay. Cooldown's pretty good too. 15 seconds, 2 swings, AoE. It's definitely why they have the word opening skill on there. Okay. Dark Crush. I would say this is the bulk of your damage. Both in AoE settings, against bosses, against trash. This is like your bread and butter. Because if you take a look at it, right? Let's say we take a look at Impactful Crush, right? The damage is about 8,000, right? Bottom end. Rushing Smash, like 20% more, sure. This is about the same amount too, 8k. Now, the big thing is that you can remove the cooldown on this, right? And if you're hitting something that doesn't get stunned, you have a chance to proc it, and you can keep using Dark Crush the second it procs, right? So let's see if we can get it. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. I get about 4 casts off, roughly. With higher combat speed, if you buff yourself or something, you get like 5. If you're ping's low, probably like 6 or something like that. But the big thing is that in the bulk of your DPS is Chanter, you're going to be attacking, fishing for Dark Crush, go into your crushes, go back to fishing for Dark Crushes. There you go. So you kind of have to be ready to attack with Dark Crush whenever you see the proc come up. Now, there's some ways to add it. You can add mobile to it. I mean, like, I think every Spectre is good. You could add mobile to it because that'll let you jump around and cast when you're fighting bosses or like you need to kite ads or something like that. You can add AoE to it if you're mobbing inside packs. Like if you're clearing trash or something, you see that the AoE hits all 3 of them, you could spam it, right? It also works on stun, so usually you could do like, right, you could like stun into it, get like 4 casts, then another stun into it, get 4 casts, and then, you know, Heatwave Blow is also a stun as well, you get 4 casts. If you want to beef up the skill itself, which I generally take, the leech is pretty crazy. Let me show you that before we switch to a chain skill. Let's say here, right? Let's see if we get the proc off. There, it gives me about 5k heal. Not doubling either. That's 10k a cast because I was hitting 2 scarecrows. If I hit all 3 of them, it's like 15k heal. So it's a massive amount of sustain. The only problem is that it's a little bit conditional, right? Unless you're fighting packs, then you could, you know, just yeah. Unless you're fighting packs, then you can just stun them and chain it. So when I'm bossing, I tend to have remove cooldown's the major one, which gets 16. The chain skill, which unlocks a second hit. The second hit is maybe about, looks like 50% stronger. It also still has a little bit of stagger damage. And the good part is that you don't need to have the enemy stunned or to be inside your trigger window to cast it. If you cast the original Dark Crush, you have the piercing strike follow-up for a set amount of time, right? So here, I cast this once. I could hold it a little bit until I use the next chain. Just for a little bit though. So that still gives me 1, 2, 3, 4. That gives me 4 casts. Now, if you start your chains late, like let's say you didn't notice you had Dark Crush, right? You get a little bit of leeway because you can cast the third Dark Crush. You can cast the third cast of the chain, the double chain, and you still get the 4th chain. Now let me take off the chain skill here. Let's say you're a little late on your Dark Crush. Let's say I'm auto-attacking. Oh, I didn't know I had Dark Crush on. I probably only get 3 crushes, right? Because that's within the trigger window. Now, if I add on the chain, right, the second cast of Dark Crush going from Crush, Pierce, even if I'm a little late, because the Pierce lingers after pressing Dark Crush, Piercing Strike, I'm still able to get that follow-up skill and get 4 crushes relatively. Alright, so let's say I'm a little late. 1, 2. But here I cast Dark Crush again and I have Piercing Strike lingering. Because the chain skill is independent of the proc window on Dark Crush. So in general, I like having leech here so I could face tank stuff. If I'm clearing, I'll take AoE, but the combination of no cooldown, 4 hits, and 20% leech lets me face tank a lot of boss mechanics. But again, that's sort of your core game plan, right? Rotating between Dark Crush and Onslaught. That's why you see I have Dark Crush and Onslaught both at 20. Because these make up the bulk of your DPS. Triggering Dark Crush and using Onslaught. I'm on higher ping, so it's not like crazy to do, but I also like weaving in auto attacks in between Dark Crushes, right? Because this lets you roll more hits and gives you a higher chance to chain your Dark Crushes. So let's see if I got a proc off here. Like here, right? Auto attack crush. Right, so I get like, I weave 3 auto attacks between the crushes. And while it's not guaranteed, sometimes it just, you know, you get the proc off and you get to chain your crushes. Let's keep trying. Here's another set of crushes, right? So 6 crushes there. There's another set. So just by purely the fact that you're auto attacking gives you a higher chance of proccing the 5% chance of activating on a non-stun target, non-stunnable target, and rolling these dark crushes is what's going to get you the bulk of your damage. All right. Gust Rampage. This is your stagger skill. I don't use it too much. It's not bad for lowering your cooldown if you have it at 16, right? The final spec here. Mobile's not bad. A little bit of healing, kind of, but in general, like I will. You see this priority here for my E button? I have Dark Crush over Gust Rampage. Like the cooldown reduction is kind of nice, but it's kind of funny because as your main damage dealing skill, Dark Crush at 16 already gives you no cooldown. So this is kind of like, this is more for like utility if you want to use it to like start rolling your bigger cooldowns. But in general, Dark Crush is the bulk of your damage. So it's a little redundant to use Gust Rampage if you had Dark Crush up. Now it feels generally DPS loss. Alright, Heatwave Blow. It's a pretty strong hitting skill. 10k damage. Guaranteed multi-hit. Yeah, guaranteed multi-hit. 20% more damage against targets. It's a good CC skill as well. It's mainly for like mobbing and stuff like that. But, you know, it's a good one button to press. So that's the reason why it's 10-second cooldown. It's pretty short. That's the reason why you have Rushing Smash, right? Because it's a 50% chance to activate Heatwave Blow. And if you take the -5 cooldown on Rushing Smash, you also... it lines up with your Heatwave Blow. So every 10 seconds you could Rushing Smash into Heatwave Blow if possible. It also procs naturally off of blocks, but right now we're kind of in an evasion meta. There it is. So evasion, like dodging attacks, even in PvE it's actually very useful. Dodging attacks supersedes block. So the chances of you getting a Heatwave Blow off, like these resets, or even activating in general, because this is a 25% chance of a reset on block, it's pretty rare. So this is more of like a nice to have after you activate Gust, after you activate Russian Gale. It does hit an AoE, and it does hit hard. So, alright, your main heal. Biggest things here, this restores 10% of max health. This is on top of the current healing. Right, it's a pretty massive heal, a burst heal. It's like your main, it's your main form of sustain for the most part. So here, 10%. You see, there's 2 numbers laid on top of each other. Where's that? So there, the 2k is the base healing, and the 3.2k is the 10% healing, right? So that goes from that. It's basically a almost 1.5x of the 1.5x and change of the original heal. So getting it to 16 is really strong for healing, and the best synergy with that is reduced cooldown, right? That's generally the two. You could use it on mobile if the fight has a lot of moving, but in general, you'll probably have a good chance to cast it. Even then, you could always roll out of it. Not too early because it'll cancel it, but you can roll out a little bit of the animation lock. The third one is probably going to be recoup duration for the ticking heal, right? Because that gives you about like a third of the healing every tick. So that's 2 ticks of it. So that heals maybe about like 800 more, right? On top of your 2k. For me, anyways. It's not a priority, but the main priority is getting this 10% extra healing in the cooldown. Because it goes down to a 10-second heal for, what is that? About like 40%. No, that's, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about like 18% of my health for every 10 seconds. Plus the actual heal ticks as well. So I'd probably say that heals about like at least a quarter of my health. So that's going to be your main force of sustain. You want to love the skill. You want to get to 16. This Tremor Crush, this gap closer, I basically just use it as a gap closer. I don't like the chain skill follow-up. If you take a look at it, it does about the same amount of damage. It's a pretty low damage skill. It's more of like a PvP CC. So I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather just go back to left clicking and fishing for dark crushes. So I just take the stamina on it, and I take the range on it. Right, because 10 meters is really, really short. It's about like here, right? So I also make sure that I take the stamina on it, because when you use Tremor Crush, you got an extra roll or 2. Well, just 1 roll probably. But yeah, sometimes that's make or break for like dodging skills or like catching up with teammates and running in the dungeon, etc. So this is like purely utility. It's a 20-second gap closer. It does stun too. You could stun into Dark Crush with it on mobs. Wave Blow, this is your grab. But if you're hitting a target that can't be grabbed like a boss that doesn't stun or anything, you can use it, turn it into a dash, which is pretty nice. So here it's a similar to Dark Crush, where if it procs, you'll see a proc on the right side here, the trigger window for it. And if you spec into the dash, which is plus 6 meters, it becomes a 10-meter dash. And that, it's not bad. It gives you a nice gap closer. If you want to use it purely for utility, you can as well. Sometimes it just doesn't go off either. There it is. So there's a, pretty quick. You can even cancel the last bit of it too as well. So if you want to, just to get the effect of the gap close, you can do that. But the damage is not too bad. Cooldown kind of sucks, but I mean it's a gap closer, right? The interesting thing about it is that you can lower the target's damage. It's sort of like a defensive utility as well. All right, take a look at it here. It says damage down here on the dummy. It also works on the boss as well. It's a decent uptime, like 50% or something. So what sometimes I do if I don't think that I need to chase the boss around a lot, like let's say it's like a fairly immobile boss, like there's a couple of them. I'd say the Ferocious Den boss I chase around all the time. The new dungeon, the 3K dungeon, I chase around all the time. But if it's like something like Deuce, and Transcendence 10, Arcanist, and I'm burning it, I don't need the gap close. So you could take the cooldown reduction and the minus damage on the boss. And because 15 seconds is like 66% uptime on damage down on the boss, it's very nice for hitting. Like sometimes, like if it's inside Deus, I'll put the damage down specifically when he's going into his transition phase and a phase break on the ground waves, because people take a lot of damage there, right? You can control, for the most part, where you activate this skill. All right, Spinning Strike. This is one of your best mobbing skills. It's really strong in general for bossing as well. I take minus cooldown, and this is not multi. I think it changes to critical. Critical as well. It's not too bad. You could take this. You could take skill speed as well. You want to, just speed up the animation a little bit. But again, there's pretty strong synergy between this, right, as a damage skill. It's very hard hitting. All right, it hits 1.6k. That's like on top end. That's like stronger than most of your skills. And the cooldown is 25 seconds. But if you use the specialization here with Onslaught, it gets minus 1 second on Spinning Strike every time you auto attack, right? So take a look at this. Right, cut the auto attacks. I mean, if you keep auto attacking, it's barely any cooldown. Might be like, I don't know. Let's take a look. So let's hit this. Hit this at the same time. Let's see how long they go down. Yeah, it's basically a 10-second cooldown. You see how the 10 seconds on Impactful Crush and 10 seconds on Spinning Strike pretty much clear at the same time. So that's also another reason why I'm saying you always do auto attacks in between your Dark Crushes, right? Because you're constantly getting the cooldown on Spinning Strike lowered. It does a good amount of your damage too. I don't take the critical hit because you crit pretty often inside bosses. Bosses don't have crit res, like too much crit res, and eventually you get your pets up. The critical resistances on your, the critical hit, your base critical hit, will be pretty high, and you don't have to worry about it inside PvE. All right. Defiance is your stun break. Like 90% of the time, unless like there's a reason for you to want stun immune. A longer stun immune, so you could like face tank some phases, like Deus's phase break, or maybe you're afraid of getting hit by like waves during Arcanist or something like that. You could take that, but in general, it's just like HP and damage total, right? But this is like almost personal preference. I also just don't have the skill at 16, but in some situations, the reset cooldown is pretty nice. Okay. That does it for all the skills. Again, in terms of priority, I'd probably say in PvE, Dark Crush is priority 1, Onslaught's 2, heal is 3. I could put heal higher, right? If you're like just solo healing instances, or you're playing with like a like a low sustain party, or it's early game. And it's probably a tie between impactful and spinning strike. I'd probably say like my own personal priority is like Dark Crush, Onslaught, heal, impactful, spinning. And the other ones are kind of like whatever, right? And you definitely want like rushing smash at 12 is really nice, but at 16 it's nothing too crazy, honestly, because you instead of like charging the skill, you could just go back to fishing for Dark Crushes. Way Blow at 16 is like a decent utility. Tremor Crush you can leave at 12. Heatwave Blow you can leave at 12. I didn't do this. Let's make this mobbing. And right clicking you could, yeah, for the most part you can ignore it unless you get a 16 for mobbing. Maybe they change it in the future. Right now block's useless and right clicking is lower DPS because you get a lower amount of Dark Crush procs. Maybe on like higher ping you can weave it a little faster and there'll be a difference, but right now I'm just left clicking. And that does it for the skills, the regular skills. Okay, passives. Max HP and healing, not bad. I didn't really prioritize it too well early on. Because you kind of burst through a lot of stuff. The healing's not too bad. A little bit of healing on block, it's nothing too crazy. Maybe it's good for like if you like need sustain for some reason, but I think if you're just auto attacking or you have like leech on Dark Crush, you're totally fine on it. It's like low priority. This is when you auto attack 10 times, you give a little shield to your team. It's not bad, but I don't think this amount of shield is going to be protecting anyone. Maybe. But in general, I don't find myself dying, so it's not that big a deal. It is a good amount of shield, though. Like, 1.8k is not bad. This scales... perfect and crit isn't too crazy. Critical inside PVE is abundant. Perfect is a pretty minimal DPS loss because perfect is you're always hitting the top end of your range with perfects. But if you take a look at some skills, like rushing smash here, right? The gap between a high hit and a low hit, at least on before all the modifiers and everything, it's only about like 400. That's like less than 4% variance, right? In terms of high and low. So trying to invest too many points to get a higher perfect generally doesn't do too much. This is one of your big skills. You can see that's why I'm at 22 right now. This is 16% damage boost. The accuracy is a little bit is nice. Defense somewhat negligible, but you're gonna feel it if you don't have the passive leveled up. In general, the damage boost is one of the most efficient skills to have. Impact hit. The impact chance isn't anything to write home about inside PvE, but the smite chance. This is if you play Throne Liberty, this is your heavy attack chance. It's double damage, right? Let me see if I can fish for something. There it is, right? So you see Onslaught against training, it does 111 double critical, right? So that means that crit affected by your crit modifier, then double, right? So there's 3 things in the game. There's critical, which is just adding your crit damage multiplier on it. Perfect, which hits the top end of your damage range, and double, which is 2x, right? So you could critical, perfect, double something, probably. Yeah, my perfect is pretty low, but for the most part, it's there. It is. There's a perfect there. So it's 11,365. Meanwhile, like there it is. So if you take a look at Onslaught here, right? The critical here is 6484, while the critical perfect literally just adds only 100 damage. So critical isn't too crazy. Meanwhile, smite, aka double, like literally double damage, and criticals are affecting a critical modifier, which is pretty crazy high too. Okay. Raging spell. Monsters are basically never staggered in the game, unless like maybe you see like once or twice a fight inside bosses. So this is relatively useless. Plus, it's on a 1-second cooldown. Earth's Promise is one of your big passives. 10% damage tolerance, and uptime is 50%. Up 5, down 10. So this is also one of the key passives, right? Anytime you see damage tolerance reduction or damage boost increase, that's always what you want to focus on. Survival willpower is, for the most part, this is just like not getting stun combo to death by bosses. It's not too crazy in PvE. I wouldn't worry too much about it unless you're fighting bosses that have like stun combos or something. Like I think one of the new bosses stuns then grabs you. This will protect you for at least one of those kill shots, right? But it's on a 2-minute cooldown. And then Wind's Promise, RNG chance to do more damage when you crit something. The damage isn't bad. The 1 second cooldown is a little rough, but let's see if we could hit something here. I think I just saw, yeah, Wind's Promise here, right? So Wind's Promise does about 14k. It's on a 1 second cooldown. I think last time I checked it, it's maybe about 4 to 5% of my total damage when I was parsing. So the damage is not bad. I mean, I wouldn't really level it up because flat increases on the level up isn't too crazy, but it's nice to have, right? So if you take a look here, Wind's Promise level 1 is 1.6k top end. Wind's Promise that I have right now is 1.8. So if it's like maybe 20% more damage, which is maybe another like 2-3k per proc, that's not too crazy. That's probably less than like 1% of your damage if at that. So you don't need to level this up too much. In terms of priority, if you find yourself really healing people, Blessing of Life. The 2 major passives, Attack Preparation, Earth's Promise. And then Impact Hit, because it's Smite Chance. You can take some of the utility stuff, right? So I'd probably say again, Attack Prep, Earth's Promise, top 2. Blessing of Life, Protection Circle is utility, and then some Impact Hit at the end here to get your Smite up. So that does it for passives. Stigmas. We'll go through them one by one. Okay. Obliterate. It's your stagger skill. You can cancel early, so don't do that. But in general, this is just here for dealing 50 stagger damage to the boss when you need to get through stagger checks. And make sure you know that because you don't have too many stagger skills, right? I think Rushing Smash has it. Impactful, Spinning Strike, Dark Crush, and Obliterate. And then Fracturing Blow are your stagger skills. So you kind of have to rotate them when you're doing some bosses. The stagger checks in this game aren't too crazy, and it's like not up to you too much. Well, I'd probably say like the first and 1 and 2 dungeons. The first dungeon intros it. The second dungeon, Drop Near Caverns, is probably the big one, but Gladiators do like double your stagger damage, some crap like that. So you can help, but it won't make or break. Make sure you just have Obliterate and hit it once, and then it should be okay. You put Aion 1. This is your big mantra. It gives you basically everything. 20% damage boost, 20% tolerance. It's been nerfed. It's been buffed. It's been nerfed. The big breakpoints here, I mean, I think is basically the first thing you want to, not really max, but at least get to 15, right? I think most stigmas, you can do like 5, 5, 5, 5, and then eventually something at 10, then something at 15. The first one you push is going to be Undefeated Mantra because the damage boost increases by 0.5 every single level, and then you get the critical damage boost at 15, which is pretty big. And then the early game accuracy on PvE is pretty good too. Like, don't ignore your accuracy when you're fighting mobs, because if you're fighting like higher level bosses or you're like under geared, like which you probably will be in early game, the 100 accuracy can make or break. Bosses parry a lot. Focus defense. This is more of a PvP skill. It's a block. It's a frontal block. You can cheese like some mechanics with it instead of dodging. Right, just like a mobile, just like a stationary block. You can block like yellow AoEs. You can't block red ones, but yellow ones. It's more of a PvP skill. There is one raid mechanic that you can use it on where you can block like a major mechanic that resolves the mechanic. But I think like 90% of the time it's going to be the Gladiator, and so you're part of your Templar. So you can ignore that. This is your speed mantra. It's an aura that gives move speed, a little bit incoming healing, and healing per hit. The healing per hit is meh, I guess. The big thing is going to be the incoming healing at level 5. This will help out, especially if your cleric struggling to heal. There's like 1-2 heal checks in the game right now, and they'll thank you for having 10% incoming heal. But in general, This is more of like a quality of life one, honestly. If you're playing way more support, you can take it. But if you take a look at the healing from Sprint Mantra, it's 300 here. Yeah, it's a chance to activate, and compared to the leech that you get when you're hitting with it, you don't really see it too much, right? Like, I got one heal off of Sprint Mantra. Meanwhile, I healed 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4 times off of just like regular leech on my left click. So I'd say the heal and hit is pretty negligible. You're mostly getting it for the utility of movement speed. Like, that'll help you get in and out of mechanics quicker. That'll help you like get around mechanics quicker. It'll help you run through the dungeons quicker because speed is everything. Treat it more like quality of life than like a mandatory one to have for like supporting. It's very good though. Fracturing Blow, very low cooldown gap closer. Level 5, you get 15 seconds off of it. It does a good amount of damage, closes gaps really quick. It's one of the faster dashes inside the game, like no startup at all. Gets you there in like very little end lag. 20 stagger damage. It's just really nice to have on your bar. In PvE, PvP is like one of your bigger skills, right? So just nice to have around. That's a fat 90 can double critical. I'll typically just have 1 point on it just because you want to get around, or the gap closer is nice, the damage is nice, and in general, unless you're like full supporting, yeah, it's okay. But at some point, you're not gonna need the support too much anymore, and people are gonna be burning bosses. You need something for damage. It's between this and Marchiton. This is your range nuke. 1 minute, 20% damage modifier on 5, which is not bad. It's good to have some range nukes, especially if you're like want to pull something or you're like farming, right? Yeah, like with Fracturing Blow, you can dash the mob. Marchiton, you can AoE in a pack somewhere. It's these are like good farming skills, good skills to have, just like 1 and 2. Impending Authority, this is a really big shield. It's also more healing during the shield. Good elemental tolerances. The boss does like elemental damage, like Crow meets fire crap. That protects against it doubly so with level 15 and damage tolerance. This is like one of the best skills on Chanter as well. Even in PvP, inside PvE, yeah, you could use it to like cover a lot of mechanics, cover heal checks, reset when the boss is, when your healer's like messing up, cover your healer when they're about to res. There's just so much you can do with it. And the shield's not small. Right now I'm only level 5 because I reset some skills. It's 4.5k. It goes up to, I think I had it at 8k at 15. Yeah, at 15 it was 8k. Big amount. Then 9.5 at the end. Again, it's near 10% damage tolerance. 20 against elemental stuff. So, very good skill. This is more of a PvP oriented skill. So, Root, Silence, AoE, 90-second cooldown. It's pretty high. Compared to Marchiton, which has a damage modifier, does more damage, and has a 1 minute cooldown. There's not too much reason to take this unless you're like, I don't know, there's like a lot of like range downtime, or you're mobbing, or you're farming. Sure. This is your heal plus a little bit plus a debuff clear. The debuff clear is pretty good inside a couple of instances, but for the most part, everyone kind of just uses the healing potions, right? Superior healing potions to clear a cooldown, clear a debuff, and it's only 10 seconds. So I find the use somewhat limited, but hey, I mean, why not? Especially inside Chromie, people are getting burned all the time, or getting bled all the time inside Furious Dead. I think Crow bleeds too, right? Just might as well just take it if you're struggling to keep party members alive. I don't think Chanter's too much, especially on M level. Chanter's not too much of a solo healing class. It would depend on your party members being competent. Inside Pugs, that's hard to say. Right, so you kind of take this if you need it inside Pugs, inside a static group, or you're playing with your friends that are good at the game. You don't need too much healing. They'll cleanse their own debuffs, etc. But just know that it's here for you if you need it. Again, on the other hand, it's like, 1,000 stamina restore on 30 seconds, pretty good. The MP is pretty much negligible. And if you get it at 20, 20 is like a very, very long term, but that's a very, very strong heal. 10 seconds every 30, 10% every 30 in an AoE. This is speed spell. That's what we called it. I think it was called like powered speed or inspiration or something. It's Aion one. Again, attack speed gives a little bit of everything inside a very short cooldown, and it also, the big thing here, it increases the, well, it reduces the cooldown of your whole party by 20%. So you usually people start the fight with this, then you get a second rotation of cooldowns. You can pop it to clear ads. It'll probably be up by the time you fight the boss. This is just like one of the best buffs inside the game, and probably like one of the main reasons why you take Chanters to your party inside PvE. It's between these two, right? The mantra that gives you everything, and then the buff that gives you everything else. In terms of because of the way attack caps work, I want to say that getting to 20 is it's a far stretch, but you can make use out of it, especially early game. If you're playing with gear cap players, attack percentage sometimes gets capped if they have like too much upgrades, so it's like not crazy mandatory, but it's very noticeable when you get to 20. The two in between, accuracy, it's like it's okay inside PvE, especially early game. The crit is kind of whatever, but the duration of this increases by 0.5 seconds every time, right? But the main thing here is the 25% off the cooldown of the skill itself, and you could cycle it like one or two times whenever you're fighting bosses, clearing, solo clearing strats. I mean, hell, they could just pop it off killing mobs or something. Who cares, right? It does everything. There's the animation for it, especially for your friends. Get used to seeing how the animation looks like. The 20% attack speed is really nice too. In general, it also makes procking Dark Crushes a lot easier too. Because like sometimes if you like proc Dark Crush and you like don't notice it, you'll like lose one, like right here. But having 20% more attack speed during that, it's beautiful. Wow, look at those Dark Crush procs. Okay, very satisfying. It's almost a 2-button class, but everything else revolves around it, right? Okay. And then last two, this is a generic like max HP plus heal. For the most part, people don't really take this. You can for soloing or arena if you want to like sustain through things. It's not. I've seen people take it before, but it's very selfish. It's a very selfish buff. If you take a look, so I'm at 27.26. I buff myself. I'm at 29.96. So that's what? It's like 2K. Yeah, I mean, sure, that's okay, right? It's like, and it goes all the way up to, if you go all the way up, I think it's like 6K or something. It's 5.5. So it's good. It's a selfish buff. You can take it for arena or PvP or whatever. I don't see a reason to really take it inside PvE. And then finally, Assault Shock. Can I pull this out? I can. Every class has a wing skill. Ours kind of sucks. It just stuns. Stuns are, I mean, it's like okay for as a gap closer. People will use it for bursting, like very quick bursting bosses. Like let's say you're speedrunning bosses and it takes like 20 seconds to kill the boss. This 20% attack for 5 seconds on hit is a relatively nice buff for your own damage, right? Let's say, for example, the boss lasts 20 seconds. Maybe you're running another Chanter, or maybe you don't need Sprint Mantra, or you don't need Shield or something like that. You take a Salt Shock as a opener to fight the boss with, a gap close on, and two is like a very, very tiny attack, as a very brief attack buff to land on your nukes on. And it's not too bad, right? It's 20 meters, it gets 30 when you level it up. It's somewhat situational, but don't ignore it. That does it for all the Stigmas. I think my main layouts, Guardian's such a high cooldown. Main core buffs, Speed Spell, Mantra, Shield, Sprint. Alright. If I'm not playing with pugs, I know I don't need the shield, I'll switch it out for Fracturing Blow. Doubles two things. One, the stagger over time is pretty nice because it's 20 stagger per 30 seconds, which is like about the same as Obliterate. I take Obliterate if I need like a burst stagger for a stagger check. So that does it that about does it, right? Again, your personal damage is okay, but don't give it up for in lieu of utility buffs for your party. You don't really solo heal. You can if your party's competent. But in general, you want to be treating yourself as like a damage dealer with like some crazy buffs, right? And the undefeated mantra, the big thing about this is that this 20% damage tolerance, it does a lot more than you think inside PVE. So you're tankier, your whole party's tankier. They could greed more damage. They could face tank some mechanics with your shield, and that's kind of why Chanter is like inside some of the higher ranks inside these speed clears, right, or like higher level instances, because the net positive of all your buffs, it doesn't only come offensively; it comes defensively too. So you can play way more greedy with the Chanter. And ultimately, I'd say that's probably about like the entire class rundown. Again, it's pretty much revolves around 2 buttons, and everything else builds up on top of it, right? What did I have here? It's sprint mantra. Okay, again, all right, get all your buffs up, start slapping. Remember to weave your autos. Look for those dark crushes, chain your crushes. Gap closes if you need it. You got 2 of them. 3 of them you take factoring blow. Pop wave blow if you need to for utility or gap close as well. And just keep crushing. That's really about the class. It's pretty comfortable. And all these procs feel really good. I'd say don't forget also that you have the ability to AoE pretty well with your spinning strike and heatwave blow. You're not like completely helpless at range if the boss is doing like upfront mechanic, right? Like if your dark crush procs, you can still crush. You can still throw impact. And then when the boss finishes AoE, you go back and gap close. Yeah, and I'd say that's pretty much about the class. This is for like, this video was taken at the end of season 1. I don't think they'll change the identity of the classes too much. But for the most part, what you see is what you get. You're going to be a damage dealer with buffs, and you're going to have some utilities. You can do a bunch of different things in the class, play like a jack of all trades, and everyone loves you because you give good buffs, right? Final rundown on stats. Attack, obvious, pretty good. Evasion works pretty well inside PVE. Like this amount of evasion that I have right here dodges a lot of PvE stuff, even inside raids and crap. Make sure you have some accuracy because bosses will, especially if you're punching up in levels, bosses parry you a lot. Especially if you're attacking from the front. And you have a choice generally between illusion on some of your cards, your Arcana cards, which give you a reduced cooldown. It's like 10% here. Some of my Chanter friends get up to like 15%. I think even like 20% sometimes too, with like their cards and setups and everything. Versus the choice between illusion or wisdom, which is your smite. Smite is your double damage. So if you're playing more support Chanter, go for more illusion. That drives a lot of your cooldown, a lot of your party buffs and everything. If you are a little overgeared and you want to be dealing a bit more damage, you want to solo a bit better, you want to fight, you're doing Nightmare, right? These soloed instances, you're farming whatever, you can go for more wisdom on your cards. Like for example here, this card here, right? One is wisdom, the other one's illusion, right? So you do have some choices there. Make sure you get your attack speed up. They'll happen over time if you're playing the game. But the more attack speed you have, the smoother your dark crushes are going to be, the more dark crushes you're going to get under the proc window, and the more your damage is going to go up overall. And I'd really say that's about it. Make sure that you make sure you get your heal to 16 if you're playing more support. Get your stigma levels up because that's that helps more with like, a lot of your support is driven behind stigma levels, right? Your shield, your debuff clear, your incoming healing on sprint mantra, your recuperation is like your only spammable heal, but all the other support stuff comes from your mantras, I mean from your stigmas. So make sure you level that up a little bit. Okay, but yeah, that's really about it. For all the people that requested some like this skill rundown inside PVE, hopefully that helps you guys out. looking forward to the game releasing on global whenever it does. Maybe the class changes a little bit on the way there, or we get like a level cap increase. I'll like do a little update video if I continue to play. But otherwise, get out there. Good luck. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, hit me up. Comments, DMs, whatever. Don't hit me up on Discord. I don't respond. But anyways, enjoy playing the game, and I'll catch you guys later. Again, this is Aishi. I'm playing on Bakarma right now. Feel free to hit me up in game. It's chill, and I could, let me know what other content you might want to see before I, since it's like a bit of a downtime towards season 2. So yeah, catch you guys later. Bye.